Hello and welcome to DM&D. I am Jim, aka Argent Wind, and I'm your host here as we are talking today about some new stuff and kind of rehashing some old stuff here. But we are here on the Tumble Tanker Discord server and YouTube. This is where we talk about running tabletop role playing games, primarily D&D, as that's mostly what I'm running these days. But it's also a lot of what we talk about can be applied to a lot of different game systems across the board. And today we are the episode's entitled "Bless This Mess," and the reason for that is people are going to come to you with some odd ideas. People are going to want to go in some odd ways with their plot, their characters, what they want to do with their character, or some choices they might make in the game there, and you got to figure out a way to roll with it. Sometimes the character concepts they come up with are just crazy off the wall, or they want to mix it up a little bit. And so the idea behind this is to how to kind of embrace that, how to allow that without having it completely screw up the game or derail you or anything else like that. It really is an exercise in that yes and as they say in improv, but it's also gonna. There's also things you can think about here in terms of no but. So you aren't just like, you can't do this, that doesn't work, that doesn't fit. There are ways to make a lot of strange ideas fit within a game, especially since it's your world you're playing in. It's your ideas, your concepts, your plot you're putting out there. So while running a game there, when a player comes to you with a bizarre character concept there, come at it from the direction of how do I make this work or how will this fit? And you may find that there may be a perfect fit for it. Um, so that's something to keep in mind as you're moving forward here. So part of the reason this idea came to me today is I do have to give a shout out to a creator that I follow on TikTok, Gabe Greenspan. He has some fun different series and fun different things he does on his TikTok channel. But one of the things is some busted D&D character builds where he makes some bizarre character concepts that are sometimes overpowered, sometimes just silly, sometimes do not put that in my game. Um, but he also throws some ideas. He came up with a new series recently where he basically describes a character and then tells you what class it is. And it can be really bizarre. For example, this is one I kind of example that I thought up in here is a cloaked character stands on the rooftop surveying the city, looking out over crime-ridden streets as they draw on their energy to pierce the darkness and see what people are up to. They tap into their abilities and just down into the streets there, catching people by surprise, enveloping them in darkness and silence, and eliminating them before they can even realize what's upon them. Now, most people are going to see this and go, "Oh, it sounds like Batman," and maybe they might think, "Oh, some sort of a fighter, or maybe some sort of a rogue." Nope, it's a Twilight cleric. The idea of the cloaked figure there using their powers to draw on magical abilities that clerics sometimes don't consider having. Um, the idea that basically a sixth level Twilight cleric has the ability to use the Step of Night, where they can temporarily fly. They can see further in the darkness, and so they can literally do abilities that sound like they're from other classes. And so someone comes to you idea with an idea, they may be looking at it from one concept, but they may be at three or four other ways they could arrive at the same concept, either with magical items or with multi-classing across different things, or just using certain abilities and spells and things in an unexpected way. So it's a fun time for characters to be able to do that. Another one I've seen a character like this is in Shadowrun, having a gun mage. Now the idea is like you see a gun character in Shadowrun, you think you're the samurai with the wired reflexes and they're running around there super fast doing that. But wizard like mage types in Shadowrun can also increase their reflexes with magic. They can increase their agility with magic. They can increase their senses with their magic. And so they can literally like become really, really good with guns while using their magic. And so you have a totally different way of arriving to a similar role in the party from a completely different idea with some other capabilities. So imagine your gun crazy character also being able to summon up a spirit to act as a distraction or a bodyguard or a or a shield wall of some kind. So now you have this other ability that other people in that role might not have. Um, a fun character that I play, one of the oddball characters that I created that I had a lot of fun with was but he took a mutagen to rage as a barbarian, and I skinned it very similar to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He was a person who was, I mean, reasonably like fit and very smart and everything else like that. But then he could take a pop one of his little like vials of stuff there and become bigger and become stronger and do more damage and become tougher. Um, and so I would just describe a physical change that had just it was just cosmetic, but it let me take on a different role or do more things that I'd normally be able to do with just one class. And I skinned it as a way to do things all around the same concept of taking vials of some strange concoctions, alchemical concoctions that he created to enhance his abilities, both as a blood hunter and as a barbarian. So don't be afraid if a person comes to you with this odd a choice is look at the role they want to play. Don't focus on the class, don't focus on the abilities, don't focus on the things, but look at the role they want to play in the party because they may want to play a tanky wizard and it can be done. They may want to play a dexterous charming paladin, also can be done. They may want to play a burly scary, intimidating rogue. Absolutely can be done. All of these things can be done. It's not a typical way a character might be created, but you can get there with the abilities they have and with the classes and just with the role playing and how you and how they stylize the character. You're not forced into one route with a character class or with a party role. Um, I always love seeing people taking on a role in a group that isn't the norm. In the original Avarice that I ran there, and it's a character who's in the game right now, Mavel. She was the party tank. She was a abjuration wizard dwarf in full plate, throwing out spells, a lot of protection based spells, and could just absorb a ton of damage and prevent a lot of harm, and be very very hard to hit because that capability is there within the class. And so the toughest nut to crack in the party was the wizard. Not very, not a usual thing you see. So don't be afraid to let people try those unique character concepts or those strange character builds. There's always a tendency to min max with builds. And while that can be frustrating, if it doesn't take away from the party and it doesn't trivialize every encounter, then by all means let people do it. It's when it starts to make things not fun. We had a situation where the way the character was built in one of the game there, one of the characters that we had came across there, way too much math to figure out what they were doing. And after the first time they played this character in a combat, it was we've got to do something different. We need to speak this a little bit because it was just way too much to deal with there, and their turn was taking 10 minutes to figure out just to add up all the numbers and figure out all the number of attacks. Now there are ways to shortcut that. There are ways, and as you get more experience with the character, you can get better and faster at doing that. But it was one of those things where it became very obvious that it was this is going to be hard to deal with and hard to figure out. And so um, anything you do to shortcut that down the road. And if you're willing to let them continue with that, then help them find ways to find those shortcuts. Maybe there's a little math cheat sheet they can use. I used to use it for my characters all the time, where if I was doing this attack here, I would use these bonuses and these dice. Now, it was easier because I had my own dice I was just rolling and adding things to. But even in most of your online virtual tabletop tools, there are ways to set up customized attacks. So don't be afraid to help them get through that if they need to, if they can't do it themselves. There's a lot of tools out there to kind of make that quicker, make that easier, and figure out which switches to flip and get the right bonuses out there. We had that some situations there with our blue paladin there, which well, is this person is this ability active? Or is this ability active? And so it made it a little tricky to keep it all in place there. But once it's dialed in, it it won't detract from the game, and it lets somebody fill the role they want to fill. That would be the biggest damage dealer around the planet. Well, as we've seen, and as you've probably experienced in many games here, that doesn't mean they're invulnerable to everything. That doesn't mean they can't be stopped in some way. That doesn't mean that the encounters can't make them a little scared. Um, there are always things to counter everything you throw at somebody there. So, and you don't want to do that purposely. I mean, you don't want to be gunning for that, but realizing that the types of encounters that are out there, the types of enemies they may face there, is going to let some people shine in one encounter but maybe struggle in a different encounter. And that makes for interesting encounter balance here. And that's where we get into weird encounters. So if you're running into encounters here, and sometimes encounters can be really messy. You can have way too many things in the battlefield, you can have way too much out there, but there are always ways to make encounters um, shift either environmentally or shift in the way of, hey, they're wiping this guy out. Okay, phase two or reinforcements show up. There are ways to get encounters to stay interesting, even though they're really powerful characters that you're dealing with here. But you can take and shift an encounter, and sometimes you can take the encounter in an entirely new direction. You might take something that's like, hey, big combat here, and then something silly might happen. It could just be that somebody throws a spell that just makes things weird for a bit. Um, there's a lot of charming effects, or a lot of hypnotizing effects, or illusionary type things can really take an encounter that's like too serious and just too brutal, and suddenly change it into something that what is happening? We don't know. We need to figure this out now. And so you can take an encounter that's with one type of encounter and shift it with the right kinds of enemies, with the right kinds of effects, spells, or whatever. So if your counters are all a certain type of encounter, sometimes you want to take that messiness of like, this is an entirely different type of encounter than any they've experienced before. It could be something that's in a straightforward like war combat game. Suddenly, a strange supernatural opponent appears. It's doing all sorts of bizarre environmental effects and everything. So the party that's normally just like plowing through things and taking down giants and dragons and monsters and everything else that, or blowing through security guards or whatever else that, suddenly they find themselves in a room that's filled with giant pink bunnies that are shooting cotton candy at them and making them completely freaked out by what's happening here. Or you take something very, very dark. Suddenly they are immersed in a giant pool of viscous, strange liquid that smells like blood, but it's actually green in color. And there's this whole strange wailing of faces on the walls. You can take an encounter that's straightforward and then shift it into something completely unexpected, or silly, or supernatural, or just something that changes the tone of the game, and something that lets people kind of see a different side of what's going on. Because it can get especially if you're in a game like a dungeon crawl. This is very common in games where you're just slogging through a dungeon of some kind, or or you're basically going through in Shadowrun, you're going through an office complex. It's always the same kind of guards and security guards and stuff you're running through here. To suddenly have a different type of enemy show up or a different type of encounter show up there can really change that up. Having a room that's instead of being a set of monsters, it's a set of traps to bypass, or it's a set of puzzles to figure out, or and it isn't just something you just roll through. It's something you have to figure out. It isn't just like roll some dice and you're through it, but things you have to figure out and try something different there. Again, that different encounter can really, while it's it can it can really change the tone of the game there and give it kind of revitalize what's going on. Even if you're already in a dungeon or an office complex or somewhere else there, having a strange whimsical, bizarre, scary type thing that comes along, again, kind of helps everyone kind of get past that monotony or rut that they're in. Okay. Um, it also keeps the party guessing. If they expect the same kind of encounters every time and suddenly you throw something differently at them, I mean, maybe, and this is, I know it can be kind of mean, but maybe the person that's stalking you is not out to hurt you. Maybe they're just trying to see what's going on. Maybe you're in their home and they're trying to figure out what's happening here. And so suddenly, while you think it's something scary and bad going to be coming at you, it might be something harmless, or it might be something that maybe just a child who's trying to keep away from you because you're in their cave network and everything else. Um, so that kind of unexpected, that kind of messiness in a campaign can really keep everyone guessing, keep everyone having fun, and keep everyone interested because you can't just like bulldoze your way through things sometimes. Sometimes you have to try something different. Maybe you're rescuing some prisoners. Maybe you're recovering something that needs to be taken back out somewhere to safety. Or maybe you find the item you're looking for, but there's still more to experience and look and try to find. All these sorts of odd encounters um, can really keep the party moving along and keep the interest in the story level higher. I mentioned before odd plot choices. Sometimes people want to take their character story in a strange direction. Maybe they want to go and um uh maybe they want to go on a side quest to recover something based on their backstory. Maybe they want to go back home to visit their family and they get arrested at the gates of the city they live in. Maybe um you have uh some item that you find and realize that, hey, this is important. I need to do something with this, or I need to find out what this is. And it may not be related to the overall story, but it's something that can kind of drive things. And as as a storyteller, as a dungeon master, a game master, those are opportunities to tie them into the larger plot. If somebody shows an interest in something, rather than just saying, "Oh, it's not important," maybe it is. Maybe it's not important right now, but it's related to something down the road. And so that's why you can take something that someone shows an interest in. You can then go with like, well, they want to do this. They want to find out what this thing is. Let's tie it into the overall story, or let's have like sort of tangential thing that might tie back into it, or somebody else that is part of the overall plot is also interested in this thing and they want it too. And now it's play a game of keep away. Now it's find out who you can get this to keep it safe, or find out a way to keep someone to solve the mystery, figure it out before somebody else comes along to mess with it. So it takes things off the beaten trail. Again, it's when the players initiate a choice, you have an opportunity to A, let them drive the story a little bit. B, it lets them take ownership of what's going on with their characters more. Because when they have a chance to say, I want to do this thing, or this is related to me, I need to do something about this. Hey, can we all go do this for and most times in hopefully in your parties, they're like, oh yeah, we'll help you with that because the parties at that point are friends or allies or whatever. And so or they see an opportunity there to make some money or gain some experience or find out more information about stuff. So um sometimes there are red herrings. There are side quests that are totally unrelated. They can lead to fun, interesting things, but they may not tie back. And the fun thing is to keep the players guessing sometimes like, is this part of the story? Is this related to what this is? And it may not be. And that's okay too. Those red herrings can lead to people off on some fun side quests there that do break up the story. Most storytelling, most novels, most epic like TV series where else like that, they have those one-offs, those little side branching things that might have a recurring might set up a recurring event or maybe some recurring characters that show up occasionally, but it doesn't prevent you from uh, prevent them from exploring something that they're interested in, but you don't have to make it part of the overall story. So there is that aspect as well. And so you might have this oddball thread, and um, I'll just um, uh, may have mentioned this before here, but I mentioned it in passing when we had my friend Zach on the show here. Is he was running a game where the characters were investigating something, and they were in a tavern, and they saw a poster for a farmer looking for their lost goat, and the party said, "This is important. We need to go find this goat." And it was literally something the DM that Zach had thrown in there on a whim, hadn't really considered was the thing here. Oh yeah, somebody's looking for their lost goat. That's important. We need to do that. And so the party ended up going to this totally bizarre tangent of finding this lost goat that had nothing to do with where it's supposed to go. So it derailed the game for a session or two to go find a lost goat. It is a memorable thing the party's never going to forget. They'll still keep wondering, is there something related to the main story? Is this still like who is it? Why is this goat missing? Who's doing this? Is there some sort of is it? They will keep trying to fill in those blanks here, and it's fun to keep them guessing to figure that out. It doesn't all have to pay off, but it's always going to be memorable. It's always going to be fun. So, um, so keep that in mind when those odd plot choices come up there. When a character decides to delve into their backstory and go do something, when they want to find some artifact or find some like follow up on some story that they've heard about, um, embrace that. Bless the mess. Let it mess up the story for a little while, because again, you don't always have to be going in the same direction. This is why some games are accused of being a railroad game, where you can't go off the beaten trail. You can't leave the tracks of that plot line because the story is going here. But the fun thing can happen is like, well, the train has stopped for a moment. What do you do at the station while the train is paused? Or maybe they're going to go flying off the train, get thrown off the train, and now they got to find their way back to it. But things will happen along the way. So um, let those odd plot choices mean something. Let them have fun with them. Let them let them do let them explore in a way that adds to the game and adds to their overall buy-in and adds to their agency, because that's a big part of what makes role-playing games fun is making those choices and seeing what happens. Okay. So I don't think anyone's watching right now, but Sora, do you have anything to throw out there in terms of things like while you're at this and no, that's fine. Something curious you throw in the chat there. I can reply to it there. Um, but um, we've had various situations in my games that I've played in the past, and sometimes um, just where the odd crazy things happen. I've had entire games where the entire game was that. My original one of my Shadowrun campaigns was I wanted to run a low power game where the party were all lieutenants in a street gang in Detroit. And I spent a lot of time pulling up street maps of Detroit and dividing up territory into different gang territory and said, hey, you guys are part of this gang. Here's your territory. And so, yeah, sort of our session zero, our first game was, well, you are the lieutenants in this gang here. What are you doing to make the gang more powerful? What do you want to do to make yourselves more powerful? What is your plan? And at first it was sort of the and then someone went, hey, we want to take over this other gang's territory. These guys are scumbags. We don't like them. We want to go take them out. Well, suddenly the other parties were like, you know what? Yeah, those guys are terrible. We need to go take them out here. We need to stop them. We need to carve out some of their territory for us. Well, how do you do that? Well, then they started figuring out well, we need to go in there and figure out what businesses are in that area, and now we need to figure out like what kind of patrols they have over there, and kind of take out some of their guys and get some businesses to turn against them and come and kind of put in with us, so we can protect them instead of them, and so the game that started with just like your gang go, and then suddenly they made a little more famous, made a bit of a name for themselves, then stole the wrong thing from the wrong people, stumbled across a Shadowrun gone bad, and suddenly now they have this item that a Megacorp wants, and then what are they going to do with that? How do they get it back to them? How do they not get wiped out by some crazy corp team? Um, and so it was like that just those choices of we want to go here and mess with these guys. We want to figure this out here. And then I planned for this encounter. Like, hey, you hear about a firefight happening on this part of your territory. You show up. There's a bunch of guys with some pretty awesome guns and with obviously a corp security team, and firefight ensues. They try to pick off the stragglers, and now they have this cool thing. And what do they do with? So now the story is taking a turn. They have to figure out what to do with this thing, what they want to do. And so it ended up being a fairly lengthy campaign of them sort of graduating from a gang to becoming a full on Shadowrun group. So, um, but that story was very much character and player driven, as I did not tell them here's what to do. I sort of like, here's some rumors you're hearing. Here's like, you want to follow up that? Cool. Or they just said, what's out there? And so we're going to patrol this area over here. What do we find? Well, I randomly decided some things that were there, and they decided to go in and deal with it. So that's where having a campaign where you do bless that mess, where you do embrace that chaos of who knows what's going on, who knows where things are going to go. They can make their choices and run with it from there. Uh, so it is a very different style of game. It's a different way of playing. If you have an epic story in mind and things are going off in a certain way, it's how do you guide them along the way, as opposed to the idea of I don't have an overarching story, maybe not yet, but there's things here. Go forth and conquer. Go forth and discover. Figure out what you want to do. And that's sort of that open-ended free-form campaign. Very different style. And this is where a character that they make may work, it might not. If a player is makes a character and they realize part of the game, it's not working, they want to do something else. This is where that yes and comes in. How do you want to move from this character to a new one? What are you going to do? Rather than just saying that character rocks fall, that character dies, bring in your next one. Um, so the idea of like work with them on how they want to make that change. Maybe they want to just update the skills of their character, and they want to tweak how that character works. That's again a character choice. Find a story way to do that, and find a way that makes sense. Either that one character exits and a new one shows up, or one character has goes through sort of a training montage, or maybe they get possessed by someone who has a different set of skills. Um, Now that may have some ramifications on how the party treats them, but it might be an interesting change as to how they want to play, shifting from one character role to a different character role based on something the party has to figure out what's going on. Again, a messy thing that can be a lot of fun with how it plays out. Um, well, without having a lot of extra input here, um, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up a little bit early today. But as always, before I wrap things up here, as always, if you have ideas or questions, things you want to put in here, obviously, if you're watching out there, you want to put a comment on the video here. That would be great. We'll pick that up there and kind of run with that in the future. Again, if you want to message me on the Discord server, our Discord link is right down there in the description. You can go ahead and hop into there. throw some questions either through private messages or through some of our various channels on the Tumble Tankard. There's various places you can put in there, pose questions, and throw out ideas for things that maybe you want to check into. Um, and as always, look forward to hearing from you in the past here. But today, just to kind of wrap things up here, um, again, when we talk about blessing the mess, we talk about mixing and matching genres like we did last week, of encounter designs we talked about in the past here. These things are all related. A way to keep things fresh and interesting, keep people engaged, keep people coming back for more, and having fun yourself. Nothing is more frustrating than people not interested in what story is happening. Nothing is putting something out there and everyone can give you the blank look of like, I don't know what to do. There's always something that someone can put out there to figure out. And so when those chaotic, crazy things happen, embrace it, run with it, try something different, try a different look at things, and see where things go because it can lead to a lot of fun moments and a lot of chaos, which is in a role playing game, that's where it's at. Your dice are chaos. The plot should be chaos too. Um, so, um, as always, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with something new. Hope maybe a topic supplied by you. Maybe something that comes up from various videos and things that are happening out there, or current events or strange things in the gaming industry, where I get most of my inspiration from. But anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching in the future there. And we'll see you again soon. Take care, folks. Have fun.